What's up, my online friends? We are back. We're back in the studio. We're back on YouTube. It's been about a year almost since I was able to record something. Our last video we put out was about 6 months ago. If you guys haven't checked out the Olympic National Park road trip DJ set, go give that a glance. We also had a little workshop DJ set that was about 9 months ago. But really about a year ago is when I started talking about Burdens and Another Try, their demo breakdowns. Today we're actually going to check out the Ableton projects of how I mixed and mastered those. So if you guys want to go give this one a view first, just so you can kind of see how I developed these two tracks songwriting wise, you guys can do that, and then hop back over to this video where we're going to talk about the music production stuff. What have I been doing this past year? That's a really good question. I became a teacher. I got a dog. That's pretty much it. Also, in about a month, I gotta move out of this space, which is a bummer. So I kind of wanted to utilize it as best as I could while I have this. I'm gonna knock out probably, hopefully, as many videos as I can in the next 2 weeks so that I can start breaking everything down and move into the next spot. I did really kind of have to take a break from all of my personal stuff to learn how to be a teacher, but it's kind of really worthwhile. It's helping me out with these videos, and then, vice versa, these videos are going to help me out with teaching students how to mix and master. It's been sweet being a Mr. Paddybeaz. Let's get into it, y'all. This is the Burdens project. Let me hit the blast real quick. I know I'm not for you no more. If you remember that tune, this is the blast of it with no plugins. I know. Sounds really, really different. It's kind of a really simple structure. It's 5 layers of instruments: drums, bass, synths, guitars, and vocals. And then these side chains up here, I'm just utilizing as little tools. One on the quarter note beat, and then one on the 8th beat. Just kind of using them as side chains. If you see, I just have them as the wood block metronome thing. If we all have Ableton, we know what that sounds like. Talking about the song structure is we have the intro, we have a very short verse. This part is kind of like a combined verse and chorus, because when I was writing it, I didn't know I had a chorus until I got to the second part of verse 1, and then we kind of repeat it after a full verse 2, we get a full chorus 2, and then we get the outro. So here's the kick. We got the low and the top. Boom. And so on these layers, I just have their samples, and then I combine them up here. Here I got a drum bus set to the drive at 15. It's kind of soft clipping. We got a boom turned down a little bit from what the default is, and then a little bit of a frequency cutoff and some damp. After that, I'm giving a little bit of this tape saturator, J37. It's from Waves. Gives a little bit of analog feel to your kick. And then I'm using Ableton Saturator, a little bit warmer. That's a preset with this sinoid fold. If you go through some of these, you'll hear a big difference. I landed on this one though. And then I'm using Utility to do a little bit of bass mono at about 150 hertz. That way the beefiness can stay in the center of your mix, and then maybe that top end can have a little bit of a stereo feel to it. So that's the kick. I have it in its own group versus the drum bus. If you see, I got kicks, drums, bass, synths, guitars, vocals. They kind of waterfall into these other buses over here, where I combine the kick and the bass, and then the kick and the bass go into the drums and bass, which would incorporate the drum bus. And then all the other instruments, the synths and guitars, they'll fall into the other instruments bus. All instruments will combine everything except for the vocals. The vocal group bus going into the all vocals, and then everything finally falls into the submix. So you can kind of see they're monitoring in, and then they're sending audio to the drum and bass, then the all instruments, the submix, and then the main. And the main is kind of where I have my bassist mastering channel, which I do have turned on right now, just because if I had it turned off, the volume would be really, really low, and you guys wouldn't be able to get to hear a good representation of the sounds. Here's what we got going on with drums. Fairly simple. I was going for some R&B, laid back. I'll do it with the kick so you have a context. First of all, let's talk about what I'm doing here in Battery. I saw some people using Battery online, and Battery I think I am going to put in the back burner, or I'm going to put down because it hurt me more than it helped me. But this is something really, really cool about Battery, is you have all these samples living in one area, and that's kind of what I wanted. So here are all my snares that I'm using. I have like a layered snare. You can change like their pitch envelope, their envelopes, so you can do some compression on them. You can even do like effects on each one of these sounds, like some lo-fi stuff, some saturator stuff. Yeah, you have like all these settings that you can use for your drum sounds all in one space. What I did was I routed all my snares into like this snare drum rack group. I used this instrument thing to freaking, I don't know, I found a YouTube video. If I find it, I'll link it below if you're interested in using battery and push and Ableton in a seamless way. But because like plugins started updating and because I got a new Mac, I had to update everything that I had done on my Windows computer over to my MacBook. And then once Waves starts updating their plugins, you have to like rebuy their next version. Same with Native Instruments. I don't think it's a rebuy them, but you have to like update them. And sometimes like the old ones stop working. And so that's what ended up happening when I opened up this project on my MacBook. It wouldn't read this plugin. It was because of the VST2 versus the VST3. I was originally doing the 2. For whatever reason, the VST2s, they weren't reading in Ableton. And I tried everything. And I gave up. So what I had to do was I had to like go to my other laptop, my old one. Thankfully, I still had it. And I could save this kit as a little save kit as, and I saved it and I moved it all over with all of the samples onto this computer. And I pretty much just had to like open up a battery for VST3 onto this and then make sure my routing was good. And yeah, it was just a headache. And so right now I have battery feeding those drum sounds into like a snares group right here. So these are my snares coming out of battery. These are my hi-hats coming out of battery, my shakers, and then my perks, which is just that one little crunch sound. So like the processing on the snare before the effects sound like this, which is like too much energy. So I added Pro Q3 to kind of tame that back a little bit. And then I added some reverb for some space. But I'm also sending some more reverbs. I have like 4 different reverbs on my synths. So my A return is a room reverb, my B is a hall, my C is a plate, and my D is a long. So I'm sending my snare to my hall, which looks like this. About 2.5 seconds of decay, a pre-delay of 32, and then a mix of 100. And then for my C plate, I'm just using a little plate from Sound Toys, which I really enjoyed for a while before I got UAD plugins. And then the whole drum bus is getting a little bit of room reverb as well. So just keep that in mind. These are my hi-hats. I'm not doing anything with Ableton on their plugins. Pretty much got the sounds right in battery. These are what the shakers are doing. And then the perks, which is that crunch. Sweet. So that's the drum bus. Now we're outside of battery. We got the vinyl crackle. The vinyl crackle is pretty simple. It's just a little bit of atmosphere. And these are the plugins that I have on it if I turn them off. I have more vinyl distortion going over my vinyl crackles. And then I'm giving it a little bit of compression, which honestly, is it even doing anything? Yes, it is. I shut my eyes and it actually is. It's giving a little bit of volume, which you're not really supposed to do in compression, but it's also bringing all 3 of these different loops together, which is probably what I landed on. So just like the kick, I have like a really low one, kind of like a high one, and then one that just kind of spits back a little bit of clips. And then I have this glue compressor that's doing a side chain with the kick. So when the kick comes through, the vinyl crackle gets out of the way. Oh, and I got this backbeat loop coming in pretty much only for verse 2 and chorus 2, because I guess chorus 2 is like where the most of the energy happens. Usually in a lot of my songs, I think that's where like most of the energy happens, is like we're coming back for the chorus. So let's add some stuff that sounds interesting and also more energetic usually. So I have like this backbeat, and I remember doing it for verse 2 because later on when we get to the synths, I drop the synths out and the pads, so it's kind of like it's giving a lot of like emptiness within the verse 2. So in order to compensate for that emptiness, I added this little backbeat here. I added this Pro Q3 because without it, we have a kick that's kind of there. That kind of competes with our own kick. So I had to take that out. And then I took some of the top ends out as well because we also have our own top end. So There we go. And then the only thing happening in this triplet is I'm duplicating the triplet thing happening right here in the backbeat and just turning that up because I thought it was really, really neat. And so, yeah, I guess I took out the low pass filter that we had in the backbeat loop so that we can hear that a little bit more prominently because it's a really cool kind of addition. The last thing in the drums are these falls, which is just a little bit of white noise. But what's interesting about the white noise stuff is that it kind of ends up sounding like brushes on a drum kit, on a snare. Stirring the pot a little bit. So I'm going to keep this utility on, otherwise it's going to be way too loud, but I'll kind of talk you through how I got there. We start off with some analog noise, which analog is just like an instrument that you can use in Ableton. So this is where it started. Give it some EQ to get rid of the harshiness and a little bit of the low end as well. Give it some reverb so that we send it a little further back in the mix. A little bit wider too. And then this is the best part. It's a high pass filter. It's more of like a little shower from a distance now. And then this compressor, honestly, I don't think it's doing anything. I think it was just in my preset. This glue compressor, I think I used just to give it a little bit more makeup gain. And then this other glue compressor I use is the side chain, going to side chain 2, which is what we're utilizing up here on just every beat. And that's what's stirring it up. That's just keeping it under wraps, otherwise it's way, way too loud. And those are the drums. That's how you get some R&B type stuff. What really helps this is like taking out the shakers in some spots. Yeah, see that skippy stuff? And then I think even, yeah, this is like a different pattern over here. Some stuff with the snare as well. That's why I like battery too, is because you can put the MIDI notes all in the same layer and then mix them independently. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna use drum rack now from this point on. All right, we can move on to the bass. This is what the bass sounds like. Bam. Yeah, so you can hear that is freaking a fat bass. Just kind of doing way too much, to be honest. Unfortunately, a bass instrument is like the only thing that I don't really own. I had to use Serum, which isn't a bad thing to use. However, I guess if you're going for like an indie track, it's kind of like noticeable that it's not really grungy. It's kind of just like it's electronic, which kind of influences like where my genre, I guess, lands. It's like a mixture of electronic stuff with like R&B type, soul type, anything else that you want to call it. But this is the bass. We're using 3 oscillators, the sub, oscillator A and B. So let's just add them one at a time. This is the sub. It's a sine wave. And we also have some noise, so I'll take that out. Bring the noise back in. Which is just adding some percussion. It's like you're spitting. Here's oscillator A. That's the beefy part of it. And then B, let's see what this one is. Ooh, yeah, that's like a glidey. Layering a bunch of different shapes on a bass. Oh, and this one's an octave up too, so that's really high. With the sub. Okay, so that's the thing. This one's really, really low, oscillator A, because that's at 0 octave. And then the sub goes up 1, and then the B goes up 1 as well. And without the filter, let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, it's not a bass anymore. So you have to have the filter. We got 12 band fall off on that. And we're not sending the B oscillator through the filter, which is kind of interesting. So we can hear that buzz. Let's see what we're doing in the matrix. So it's this envelope 2 is controlling everything. The noise level, A and B volumes, and then the sub oscillator level as well. So if we look at those, yeah, it's all this. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I have oscillator A in the sub going down in volume, and then oscillator B comes down to up in volume using this envelope right here, this really fast envelope. This is why I do these videos, honestly. It's kind of more for me. I'm trying to figure out what I was doing and what I landed on. And it's kind of like a nice refresher for me when I'm trying to make my next tune, to come back to these videos, watch them, and be like, oh, that was a cool trick. So if you're not even watching these, at least I'm watching these. So we have this bass. We really start shaping it later on with these plugins, so we'll do one by one. First, we add a little saturator with a little soft sine, which doesn't sound soft to me. I guess I was pumping out more energy, thinking that I needed some. Before we do that, we can go into the effects. All I'm doing here is adding some hyper, distortion, and compression. Some unison detune. Some tube distortion. And then compression to bring up that level, which you shouldn't use compression to bring the level up, but sometimes it's useful. Just know what you're doing before you start doing that with compressors. What are we doing here? Okay, so yeah, the bass, for what the bass is, it sounds way too toppy. So I use a little Pro Q3 to take out some of that top end. And that mid-range, yeah, we're taming it a lot more now. And then what we're doing is we have these compressors right here. This is usually what I do with a lot of either guitars or vocals, or in this case, I'm doing it with the bass, is when you have something that's kind of very dynamic, right? It's good to take care of the peaks. So if you have like a waveform that's going like this, what you want to do first is maybe compress the peaks so that you get those under control. And then you add another compressor that worries about the average overall volume to kind of like then squash it. So it's like first you squash the peaks to bring the peaks down, and then you use the CLA2A or something to then worry about the average volume of something. So that's what I'm doing with the bass, is first I have the CLA76 taking care of the peaks. Boom. And then I have the LA2A taking care of the overall. So you see this one's a lot faster than this one is. So that's just a trick about compression. It's good to use two, one for peaks, one for overall. And then we bring out this bad boy, DBX 160, and I just have it on the bass enhancer, so before and after. And then we have the glue compressor doing the sidechain 2, which is every quarter note. Because it's an electronic bass, that's probably what I was going for with these long sustains, is give us a little bit more movement and not wait for the kick drum to give us that movement. On this next one, we are also doing the kick. So we get a little bit of both of the movement, which is kind of interesting, cool. Nice. This Pro Q3 over here is just taking out a lot of that mid-range because we had 3 oscillators in the bass. If we have 3 oscillators in the bass on 3 different octaves, what else are we going to have room for in the mix? So that's probably what I'm doing here, is making room for more stuff, especially like guitar and vocals. And then I'm using this utility to give the bass a little bit more mono. Put it right there in the center at around 200 hertz. Let's see what we're doing on the kick and bass and the drum and bass tracks. So if we skip over here to the kick and bass, all I'm doing is putting on an SSL compressor. we're barely lowering some peaks. Threshold at 9.9, the makeup gain at 0, because I don't even want to make up any gain. I really just want to take care of the peaks. So we have it as the fastest attack time with the ratio of 4, mix at 100, and then release is around 1.2. I wonder if that is necessarily correct for what I was going for, but it is what it is. Too late to change it now. But you see when the bass and the kick happen at the same spot, we reduced probably about like 3 dB, which is good for our mix. When we get to the drums and bass, we're bringing the kick and bass in with the rest of our drums. We got the API 2500. This is really useful for bringing up or like, processing everything together, but it brings up all those percussion instruments, bringing the kick and the bass down, but bringing up everything to a matching level. Just ever so slightly. Oxford Inflator doing its magic. It's overall giving more energy than it is like giving more gain. Here's what Soothe is doing. I'm kind of like a lo-fi guy, so I kind of don't really need a whole lot of high frequencies. Soothes kind of just taking away some of those harsher frequencies here, especially in the snare. I chose like a really intense snare, and then there we are again, taking out some of the highs to match like more of that lo-fi vibe. And this is just me literally barely doing anything on the super low range that we can't even hear. And then here's a little bit of a limiter going on with just one gain. All we're doing here is just kind of bringing up our level just a little bit before we match it with everything else. If you know your kick, your drums, and your bass feel good, then you can start to land everything else on top of it or like in between things. And I think that hits. Could just be me, but I think that hits. Let me know in the comments if it hits. Moving on, I gotta take the dog out some point. Blue's napping though, so we'll keep it moving. Let's see what the synths are doing. I love really wonky stuff like that. Oh yeah, I named this one K-Tronata Synth. I probably followed a tutorial video, and that's why I call it K-Tronata Synth. We got 2 oscillators, one an octave down in the sub, one at the octave that it's being played at, with a lot of detune here in the unison. So we have like 5 voices in the unison going real detune 0.09. Let's hear the sub. That's really detuned. And this is a little sine. That's why it sounds so wonky, because these are meshing with each other, especially I think with this detune. That's really interesting though. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to come back and do a little bit more of that later on. Envelope 2 is affecting the master tuning. Oh, okay, that's what we're doing also. That's making it feel so weird. Is in the global, we are affecting some kind of master tuning somewhere. I don't know where the master tuning is. We have the fine tune going on. Fine tune. That one's getting a wobble from a LFO probably. Yeah. We drew like a really nice chaotic wobble. And then distortion wet. So we have like some stuff going on here. Also the distortion with the envelope too. But this sounds nice. That's why I landed on this, I guess, because this was all that it needed. I don't know where this master tuning is, other than global master tuning. You just click on it over here in the destination. I know I found this in a tutorial video out there. I'll drop a link there if I can find it. What we're doing next is we're sending it to the sidechain. This is the first sidechain. And then, damn, we had to cut out a lot of it to make room for the guitars and the vocals. Just sad, because it's a really cool sound, but you gotta mix according to the... Yeah, see, that's too heavy in the mids. Oh yeah, we also have this. Let's solo this for a little bit. This is the juice. We got 3 oscillators here in Serum. Ooh, dang, that sounds good by itself in the freaking sub. Got an octave below, it's a sine wave. What's the movement happening here? So we have LFO1, this one, it's just like a dropout. Yeah, I'm manipulating the rate from another... Let's see. LFO2. Okay. 4 bar. Okay, so that's how I'm manipulating that rate, is I have this LFO affecting the rate of this LFO, which is doing filter cutoff. So check out this LFO1 on this cutoff. Yeah, that's what's happening. Which is cool. That's sweet. So we're bending it with this one right here that's going every 4 bars, giving us that effect. So that's just the sub, but when you add the oscillator A with a little bit of detune, nice. And then the last one. LFO4, what are you doing? You're doing sub oscillator level. This one's opening up our sub, making that louder and then bringing it back down. Envelope 2 doing wave table position, just giving it more movement between the wave table. It's a pretty interesting move there. Envelope 2 is also doing wave table position in the very beginning, so it moves it all the way down, and then the LFO3 takes over. Initial movement lands on this. Macro 1, filter cutoff, envelope, sustain. I could have automated that, but I ended up not because it was like a very chill R&B tune. LFO 2, LFO bus 1. Oh, is it this thing? Yeah, the LFO bus 1 is that little slider there, bending it. I don't even know how I did that. But you can find it in LFO bus 1. So that's our plucky synths. We have these plugins after the pluck. I am using like some automation on the filter for, I guess, some additional movement. Yeah, take away the highs and then bringing them back for when the pluck happens. Pro Q3 is putting it within the mix, and then saturator. It's almost like we took out all of the mids and then we're bringing saturator back in to like compensate for us just taking out all those frequencies. Yeah, and you see if I bring them back in, then we're really saturating it. It's too hard, so we gotta have that Pro Q3 in there before the saturator. Nice. Yeah, and their synth bus group, all I'm doing is adding, compressor sidechain to the vocal bus, and then some overall on both the pad and the pluck. I guess I had a little fab filter before. to bring both of them in to the same frequency range as well. And then we just have another glue compressor going with the kick. Just a little bit. Guitars are interesting because I was experimenting with like mics and stuff, and so this was the first time that I recorded straight out of my amp with an SM57 pretty much, you know, an inch away from my amp. And so that's what these two are doing. And then I put another SM57 across the room, pointed at like the back corner of the room. So it's like if you have the amp right here sending signal to the wall, it bounces off the wall and then into the SM57. So I was trying to go for like some kind of spatial room mic effect, just, you know, because I'd never done that before. So I kind of wanted to give that a go. I'm going to keep the plugins on just so you can kind of hear like the difference between both those mics. Start with this one. And then here's the room mic. So with distance, you definitely lose a lot of high frequencies. You also get a little bit more depth as well. The room one's panned hard right, and then this one's panned like not so hard right, but still quite to the right. And this is their mix. So I thought that was like a really cool thing to try out. I actually ended up liking it a lot, and that's maybe why my guitars sound like as full as they do. It's because I have like two room mics going hard left, hard right, and then I have the up close ones going left and right as well. So you get like a lot of like spatial timing, delay, tension, layering is a better word for that. So for these close-up mics, I did that same thing that I told you about the bass. Take care of the peaks, and then you take care of the overall sound. So this is just the peaks. And then the overall. I'm gonna add the room, see if we can hear it. Ever so slightly. So if you like this guitar sound, maybe give that a go. But a lot of the magic also is happening in these plugins as well. So let's see what we did here. Same thing, we're doing the peaks. Overall, we're adding a bit warmer of a saturation. Gives it more energy. A glue compressor on the kick. EQ8 to take out some of those lows, just to leave room for the bass. Same thing, a little bit more of the mid lows. And even though you can't hear the difference of all this, it all adds up. So like even if you can't really hear this one, but we're also doing that for the vocals later on. Maybe you can't hear them individually, but whenever we cut out of two different instruments, then you definitely can tell the difference with the bass. Take note of when you do that individually on tracks too, is like know that, okay, maybe I can't hear this, maybe my ears aren't trained enough to hear what I'm doing, but at least I know that if I do it here, and I'm also doing it on 4 guitar tracks, that by the end of it, I will be able to hear the difference. I got this compressor going with the vocal bus that we can't really hear just yet because our vocals aren't in there. And this utility is doing, just adding a little bit more gain. Maybe we lost some with these EQ cuts. And then I have Pro MB multi-band compressor. That's what it is in the low ends, because I still see that we have a lot of low ends. I got this parallel compression that I'm doing, that I'm sending all of my guitar tracks to. So we have the guitar bus that we just went through, and then on top of that, I have it going to Ascend using a CLA76 Rock My Vocal. I used it for parallel compression in this scenario, meaning that anything going into this signal is going to get squashed so that you have kind of like a baseline level. It's kind of like a wall of sound. So if you have like a wall of sound maybe sitting really low, like if we play it, here it is over here, you know that signal's going to be there consistently. Say if your guitars are da 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 da, then this wall of sound, if you parallel compress it, it's always going to be there. So no matter if your guitar goes like this dynamically and it dips really, really low, it still has this to compensate for it, so that it's never really going to get too quiet. That's kind of what parallel compression is doing, and I hope that made a little bit of sense. And if I turn this up, the send, and then we turn up like the overall baseline level, so it gets louder. Yeah, so that's the guitar. We're gonna do some vocal stuff. Okay, I remember when I made this track, I was still fighting, like, how do I make my vocals sound bearable? So of course I was like, I love Daft Punk stuff, I love Roixop. Everywhere I go, there's always something to remind me of another place in time. I love vocoders. That's what I'm trying to say. Some auto-tune, some digital vocals I've always been intrigued with. So I wanted to give it a try. We'll do the melody first. I know I'm not for you no more, but you let me try again. It's okay, but it's definitely not approvable by me. So I guess I used autotune first, and then maybe I'd miss some, so I used Melodyne to kind of like just pitch correct. Same thing as before. Take care of the peaks with the fast compressor, and then evened it out. I know. With a slower one. I'm not for you no more. And then we added this. You let me try again. I'll be better than before. We're definitely sending some reverb. We're sending it to A and B, room and hall. I disabled the plate because maybe that was a little bit too much. But we got some room reverb and we got some hall reverb going on this lead vocal melody track. The only thing happening in this T track is a syllable that I missed, I guess. Notice or sing. Notice. Let's go to our vocoder. Maybe you notice that we skipped over this vocoder chords, and that's because we're not hearing it, but we are utilizing it to send information to our vocoder channel over here. This is like the most basic. I think when you open Serum, this is what you're given. You're given 3 oscillators, a sub, A and B, and I just have it as a basic shape. I think these are supposed to be like analog basic shape. I think this is like a saw, right? Yeah, that's a saw wave, triangle, square. Yeah, so we have it on saws, 2 saws. One is at octave 0, one's at -1, and then you have I put a square wave at -1 for the sub. So what you get when you send it to this vocoder, so you want audio from vocoder chords, which is this channel. When I'm not there to very, very low. Oh yeah, okay. We'll come back to Serum. Before you put vocoder on, it's just me singing dry, which we're not going to do. We're going to put auto-tune on, and we're going to hear it like that, as it was intended. Are you lonely? What the fuck? Lonely in the morning. Alright, my bad, damn. That was lazy as shit. Let's see, and this is why maybe it didn't matter. Maybe this is why also I was like, what's going on? Okay, so I put on a Frank Ocean vocal preset. David Gonzalez, Frank Ocean vocal. Yeah, because I was like, we got to fix this somehow. Okay, so I got rid of the lows. When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep. We're getting there. And then I like this plugin, this Aphex vintage, male up close. Let's see what this is doing. It's like an exciter.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Gave us a lot more air in our vocal. I'm choosing a really, really bad example.
Share a cup and Joe. What's your favorite?
Y'all, I sound better than this. This shit is not helping me out. But I used it because I was sending it through a vocoder anyway, alright? Otherwise, I never would have done that. There's a de-esser, and then I gave a little bit more gain before we got into the vocoder. So now we're here. Now I can listen back. Let's go.
Are you lonely? Lonely in the morning when I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Sweet. So now we can come back to the serum and kind of see how we're shaping the sound. We'll start with the sub.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
So that's our square wave, our sub square wave, and then we add the A.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
So it's actually a lot higher than the sub. But you can't really hear it because when we have our sub in,
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
because that sub takes up a lot more sound than the high one does. And then we have this one also, which is also down an octave. So it's still a lot low, just like the sub.
When I'm not there to tuck you in.
But because we have like a saw and a square kind of like adding together, they fight with each other, but they also like sit really well with each other.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Yeah, it's like very
To share a
very warm.
cup of joe.
And then here
What's
come our
your
highs.
favorite show? Do you notice? Or simply just not care?
And we're not doing anything with the filter, but we could have.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
That's what I love so much about vocoders is like there's so many things you can do with it. I left it on the basic shapes just because it was my first time like using a vocoder, but we could have easily like shaped this into something else.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Like anything.
To share a cup of joe. What's your favorite show? Do you notice?
You can spend a whole day or two or a week going over some like vocoder shapings, but you can also just call it the basic shapes, leave it on saw, and also call it a day, move on with your life.
When I'm not there.
And that's what we did. What else? Oh, and then I sent it through a Redux to give it some more like digital grit.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Pro Q3 just, I guess, I don't know why.
Morning.
Maybe just movement.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Because it was fighting with like the other vocals that I had in there. And then
To share a cup of joe.
one more overall compressor
What's your favorite show?
to just level it out.
Notice, or simply just not care.
We'll bring in our lead.
Are you lonely? Lonely in the morning when I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Alright, had to take blue out, but we are back. Ooh, I also need a little sip of this bubbly. Oh, bubbly. You know, it's growing on me a little bit more. Bubbly. I need a sponsor, alright? Be my sponsor. Where were we? We got one harmony line. That's it. But we are using the Haas effect, which kind of helped out with that. Let me show you real quick what the harmony sounds like.
Lonely, lonely in the morning
Not the best.
when I'm not.
I'm using a gate so that whenever you can't hear any signal, it goes down. And then same stuff here. We got CLA 1176 and a CLA LA2A.
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
Bro, okay, bear with me. All right, bear with me. That does not sound good. One, because I think it was a late night when I was singing this. Two, because it was one of the first songs that I made. Three, it was okay because we already have like a really auto-tuned melody line,
Morning
like a very full
when I'm not
up
there
front.
to tuck you in to fall asleep.
We have the filler of the vocoder,
to share a cup of joe.
That already sounds perfect. And so in order for us to maybe like hear the harmony line, I'm saying maybe because maybe not. In order for us to hear the harmony line, I think it's okay that it's so imperfect. Otherwise, it would feel too in sync with the vocoder and you wouldn't really be able to hear it on its own. Let me get through the processing of it real quick though. Here's the Haas effect.
Share a cup of joe, watch your favorite show, or simply just not care.
So what we're doing with the Haas effect, we split the mono signal into two different chains. So we have the one without the delay, and we're sending it all the way to our right side. And then we have the delay that we're sending to the left. And so what that does is it makes it feel like you have two different vocals because the timing is different between just the one mono. With the timing being different, it just feels like it's two voices instead of one, which is why we can just have one harmony line. Let's hear it again one more time, so imperfect.
Are you lonely, lonely in the morning,
Without Haas effect.
when I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep?
When I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep.
So you can't even really hear how bad it sounds.
To share a cup of joe, watch your favorite show. Do you notice, or simply just not care?
So I'm okay with it in the mix. By itself, it blows. The vocal bus is getting one LA2A to capture the overall compression of all these vocal parts, to kind of put it in the same, just to squash it down a little bit. Then I have Gen Dopamine giving a little bit more clarity. Glue compressor sidechain to the kick. Pro Q3 dipping the lows, the mids, and even a little bit of those highs that I think was coming in with the vocoder. And then we have a Soothe doing a vocal rescue mix bus, which, you know, that's all it needs to say for us to gain its trust.
Lonely in the morning, when I'm not there to tuck you in to fall asleep, to share a cup of joe, watch your favorite show. Do you notice, or simply just not care?
So that Gen Dopamine is really giving it some
I'll
punch.
be better than before.
Bringing the kick.
I leave my shoes and my burdens at the door. Give me the pain you hide inside. Trust me one last time, and I'll take us back to the love we had before.
Alright, we're almost done. We never talked about the synth lead though, because it wasn't in that verse. So coming back to the synth lead, that's really, really loud because I turned off all the taming plugins. But what we're doing with this synth lead at the very end is we have this Model 84 polyphonic synthesizer, which is pretty much just a Juno. With these little settings here, we have a little bit of automation on the frequency and maybe something else. Camera keeps overheating, so we'll try that again. Yep, so we got a Juno going into a saturator, giving it some more warmth. Sometimes with synths and basses, I like to use the DBX 160 just because, one, you're using a different kind of compressor, so you don't get the same kind of like electronic signatures as you would with the other compressors, so it's nice to kind of switch those up depending on different instruments. And they also have like really cool presets. Like the last one that I used for the bass was the bass enhancer. For the big synth, I want to use the big synth, you know? And then this is where we really tame this lead sound. Otherwise, it's way too in your face. We also have it going through the multi-band compressor, just for some movement. Oh, actually, okay, this is what we're doing with the multi-band compressors, is I'm using them both as side chains. This one on the left, we're using it with the vocal. We're pulling it down anytime the vocals are singing. And then this one is guitar on the right.
I'll leave my shoes and my burdens at the door. Give me the pain you hide inside.
This was before I knew you could do that with Soothe. But here we got the glue compressor used from the kick. More movement with the auto pan. Sweet, and that's like the tune pretty much. Last thing I'll talk to you about are my bus chains or my group chains or whatever you want to call them. We talked about these two already, so let me go into the other instruments. All I'm using for the other instruments is a multi-band compressor. Again, I'm using the sidechain with the Vox bus, which is over here. So if we solo that too, then it starts moving.
Do you notice or simply just not care?
And everything that's going to the other instruments bus are the synths, the guitars, and that lead synth as well. That's kind of what the vocals are dipping. Let's see what we're doing with all instruments. Oh, this is some automation that we're doing. Watch the auto pan, the flanger. Transitions. Here we got another one. This one right here. Nice. And then the sidechain for the Vox. The all Vox, we're doing the same thing
I'll be better.
before the drop. We're just squeezing the albs.
I'll be better.
There's nothing else on that. There's nothing else on there. And now we're just in the mastering. So if we go to master, this is everything we have. These are just readouts. So the spectrum is just like
I'll be
checking the mix. Same with insight, is we're just checking our,
I'll be
if we turn it on, just checking our loudness. Ooh. Excuse me. Anything from like 9.5 to 12 I'm happy with. My fucking camera's out again. It's overheating because it's been so long. We'll BRB. All right. Here's the master chain. Here we go. We're back. We are back. We're so back. Let me do everything without it. The first thing we wanted to add just a little bit of gain. Pre-master, I always try to aim to be -6 dB. That way, whenever you do master, you have that headroom to like make it get up to 0 or like as close to 0 as you can without clipping. -6 is always like a good guesstimate. So that's why I added probably 2 dB, just because I'm sitting pretty much around almost -8. So I added that in, and now we're rocking right around 6. With the SSL compressor, turn on. We're getting the peaks again, but this time we do want to make up gain about 1. Because if we're losing some of those peaks, then we're going back down in volume, so I wanted to bring back that. And this is a very quick attack time, very quick release time. This Abbey Road, we saw this earlier, I think it was on the kick, but I have it on the master too. If I pause everything, you still see something's running over here in the master. That's this plugin. Is we have a little bit of a noise level going on at the master level, which is like adding to that vinyl distortion effect that we actually included in our drum tracks. So far, without. And then width, it's not even noticeable, but it's things that we add over maybe all of our tracks to make it consistent within an album's sake. I use Drummer. If you know, you know about my master chain. Thanks, guy. So we add a little bit of clarity on this mix with the Drummer, which is very, very subtle. It's all about to add up in the end. Saturator we're using. So far without. You really start to hear maybe a difference. Oxford Inflator is probably doing a lot of noticeable difference because it does bring up a little bit of the energy and a little bit of the volume as well. And then Soothe, I'm taking away a little bit more of this range of frequencies. Let's see why. Probably because of that hi-hat. Taking some mid-range out that I thought I needed to take, which is probably going to be compensated for with this Saturn plugin. Get a little bit of drive. And this is Warm Tape. And then looking at this, before going into the limiter, I thought maybe it needed just like 1 more dB of gain, so that I'm not pushing this super, super far. Because any more than 5, I feel like I'm kind of overdoing it. So here we go with the limiter. There's that punch. That's enough of that. We made it all the way through. Yeah, that's what I do. I know a song's done whenever I have everything pretty much that I could turn into a band, which would be like the drummer, it would be the bass, it would be, you know, a couple of synths, maybe like one over here, one over there, and then switch to a lead later on, which is exactly what I did here. And then someone's always on guitar. Sometimes you have a lead guitarist along with your rhythm and then the vocals. So like this isn't too overdone, but it isn't also, you know, like super simple as well. That's kind of my structure when it comes to instrumentation. When it comes to like mixing and stuff, I just make sure I have a nice control over everything, whether it's like each instrument in its own group, and then doing that waterfall effect all the way through these different buses so that you can start processing them and bringing them all together to live in the same space. That's kind of my mentality. I definitely did not create this all on my own. Definitely used a lot of resources out there on YouTube or different Twitch streamers and different people who have already learned this. So I've gathered up all these influences and all of these lessons that I've learned and packaged them in a digestible video for you to learn everything that I've done as quickly as you can, because it does take a lot of time to like make music and produce and stuff. So that's all I'm trying to do out here, is trying to gather everything I've learned and make videos for YouTube for either you or for my future self when I get stuck and I need to look back for some inspiration, you know, some reminders of like where it all began. And yeah, I'm rambling at this point. I think next I'm gonna do the Another Try video, do a little music production breakdown of Another Try, and then we're gonna get into some other tunes before my album drops, and it's gonna drop real soon. Album number 1, it's got like I think 10 songs. That's coming up hopefully no later than the end of this year. here. And if I have to wait up on it for a little bit longer, then I guess I gotta do that. But be on the lookout for that because that is dropping soon. Also, be on the lookout of other ways that you can support me and the channel. Like I said, I'm a teacher now, so now I'm at least getting like consistent income, but I'm losing a little bit of time. The more help I can get, the better. Even with, you know, just some streams, just some freaking Instagram likes, just some follows, everything here and there. It's encouraged and it's definitely appreciated. So thank you for watching if you made it this far, and feel free to check out the next one. All right, see ya.